are. I'm David Tochterman. I'm the executive director of BIFF, and this is our first Tea Talk of 2021. And we are thrilled to welcome Joe Plummer and Jen Westphal from Wavelength, who are sort of at the cutting edge of indie film. They've done some amazing documentaries that you have probably heard of called Where's My Roy Cohn and Won't You Be My Neighbor, and others that you may not have heard of unless you're in the industry and you've sort of seen all these movies at Sundance. But I want to let Jen and Joe introduce themselves and talk about Wavelength and why they started it and what Wavelength is doing.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having us. We're very excited to be a part of BIFF this year. So my name is Jenifer Westphal. I'm the founder, CEO, and executive producer for Wavelength. Well, we used to be Wavelength Productions. Now we're just Wavelength because that's a way cooler name. And I started Wavelength, we think about 6 years ago. I think I formed an LLC maybe a little bit longer than that, but we got really started. I got really started in the industry through a couple of different films, and then joining Catalyst, a Sundance program back in 2016 is where I met Morgan Neville, got involved with Won't You Be My Neighbor, and then obviously went from there. I met Joe about 6 years ago because we had started working on a film that is near and dear to us, all of us. It's a story about our son, Kyle, and his journey with autism. It's called Let Me Be Me, and it premieres soon at a festival. And we are excited about that. It comes out next year. So Joe started working with me on this film, and then I finally just hired him and said, enough, just start working with me. So we've been running the company we have today called Wavelength for about 5 years together. So that's my story. I don't know what Joe wants to add or subtract.
I'm not gonna add anything to
he's like in Hotel California. He can check out anytime he wants, but he can't leave. No way can he leave.
I'm Joe Plummer. I'm the president of Wavelength. I work hand in glove with Jen. We have, as Jen said, been working together for just about 6 years now. I actually came from the theater space, primarily a focus on Shakespeare, which I still hearken back to quite a bit, actually, in the documentary and storytelling space. And from there, I migrated into network television and onto the digital advertising space. I started an advertising agency at the advent of YouTube, which seems like an eternity ago, in 2005. Started creating and curating a lot of digital content and met Jenifer 6 years ago. We threw in together on Wavelength, and it's been onwards and upwards since then. I like to say that our experiences in documentary and narrative film brings all of the soul and joy of working in Shakespeare, while at the same time brings the discipline of network television together in one place. So we've enjoyed working together immensely, and have an exciting slate of projects that we will be rolling out in the next several years.
That's great. Jen, why did you start Wavelength? What made you want to start it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I usually come up with lots of different fun answers, but I'll tell you the truth. I honestly, I had nothing else to do. I like to say I've been an executive producer my whole life. I worked in politics and political campaigns. I did events. I have our 3 children who are now adults. I ran their homeschooling programs. I ran this autism program for our son. I built homes. I've raised money for nonprofits. I've been involved in nonprofit work for 25 years. But as I came to sort of a crossroads in my life where all my kids were now gone from the house, I just kind of looked around and said, I cannot just be doing nonprofit work for the rest of my life. It's not feeling me. So I kind of took a break and just said, let me think about what might come up. And as my son, my youngest, went to film school at Drexel University, he and I would talk film and documentaries. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And like I said, this film we have coming out was always been a family story, never really knew how to tell it. So that's how I met Joe. I know his wife really well. We were talking about Kyle's story and how best to tell it. And maybe that would be through documentary film. And that's really, I met Joe. We started talking about filming Kyle, and here we are.
And that was the first film?
That's this film coming out is the film that started our relationship and the company. I'd gotten involved in some other docs like Won't You Be My Neighbor, Sem Ben, some other stories before that, through especially through Sundance. But yeah, this is the film that started Wavelength.
That's great, and it's telling that it's 6 years later.
Yeah. All you filmmakers out there, it takes a really long time to make a documentary film.
And we know these things, they gestate and they have a life of their own. So one question I wanted to start with is yesterday, Jen, you did this producers panel, but one thing that seemed to be a constant from in every panel yesterday, there were 5 panels, was people thinking that post-pandemic, that the industry is going to open up more opportunities for filmmakers. And this was coming from the financiers, from buyers, from distributors, that everybody feels this way. And I'm curious to know how both of you view that. We are living in a little bit of a different world. There's been a little bit of a tipping point. How do you see that changing what you do?
I think that's a great question. And I think that the first thing I would say is that no one anticipated 2 years ago that theatrical would disappear from the landscape. And it effectively has. And I know that they're trying to claw their way back, but that was an enormous absence from the landscape, especially when it came to films like ours that were at Sundance, that were seeking theatrical distribution, that were seeking distribution from streamers, et cetera. So I think we have to start by just acknowledging that there was an enormous void that needed to be filled. I think for a lot of people, the assumption was that somehow, since people were trapped at home, that the demand for online content would only increase. And I think that that is certainly true. And I think the research has certainly borne that out. Has it risen enough to compensate for the absence of theatrical? I don't know. But for us as a company, we were very, very quick to acknowledge that there was a new reality in front of us and figure out how to pivot within that reality. And that's true for really any business. It's not just entertainment, right? You've got to adapt or you're not going to survive. So COVID presented obviously a tremendous headwind, but it also forced us to get creative, think about the landscape of all of our films. What are the projects that we can dig into? What are the projects that we can continue to push forward? How can we innovate? How can we stay nimble and producing in this space? And, as a testament to that, we have about 9 films currently in our slate that we're in the process of finishing, which is very exciting to be able to say. But it really, yes, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity. It does require a lot of nimbleness and a lot of adapting
So
to
these
meet.
9 films, has your business model or your creative model changed over the past 2 years, the way we were approaching those films?
Yeah, it has. We were pretty heavy in the doc space for a while, and docs. We came in at the time when docs had their golden era here. As Joe mentioned, and we all know, the pandemic really changed a lot of that. People felt like there was a need for a lot of content. Some of that was true, some of it wasn't true. Streamers changed in terms of what kind of entertainment they want. We see coming out of COVID more of a space for lighter content, more humor, more and as I said yesterday in the panel, and Wavelength plans to stay, and a lot of people are planning to stay into that premier content space. So we're not interested in horror. I mean, horror is awesome. Genres of horror, crime, they're all awesome. It's just not our wheelhouse. So the big pivot we made too is in the narrative space. So we have on our slate right now, we have 6 films that we're currently in some level of production or pre-production. And that's been really exciting for us. It's been a huge learning, lots of fun, but they're all in that indie rom-com, comedy space of a couple dramas. But for the most part, we're really looking for stuff films that are really telling a compelling story, but also there's some relief from what we've all experienced. And so that's been really fun. So we're seeing more of a balance in the doc narrative space for Wavelength going forward.
You know, one of the things when COVID first hit, we said, well, what are the things you can do in your house by yourself? One of those things is write. So we started to look for writers and started to work with writers, because writers and animators, these are people who can work from their homes in small groups. Same thing on the documentary side. What are projects that are heavy on archival? We can still dig deep into archives. We can still, you know, make a lot of headway in the edit on projects that, you know, regardless, that don't require big groups of people to gather together, right? We started a fund called the Keep the Lights On Fund with a couple of other production companies that we were friends with, that's specifically focused on films in post-production. We looked at our grant programs and we said, okay, let's work with early career filmmakers who aren't going to have enormous crews with them, that aren't going to have giant budgets and giant production needs, and let's push those projects forward. So again, adaptability, being nimble, looking for opportunity, despite the fact that there's an enormous headwind in front of us.
Do you find that I found that over the pandemic, there were writers that were finishing scripts they might not have otherwise had. So there was a kind of a good selection of finished material
Right.
that might not have, that 2 years ago would have been a pitch. That was now a finished script.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Writers were crazy busy, animators were crazy busy, archival producers were crazy busy. You know, as Joe said, I mean, it just, you just had to figure out where to pivot, you know, and there's an old business saying by Wayne Gretzky, and people would say, how, you know, you're such a great hockey player. How, you know, how are you so great? He said, I always went to where the puck was going, not to where the puck was. And so that's kind of, we adopted that early on, saying, okay, well, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know how long this is going to last.
Right.
So where does Wavelength want to be when we finally all start coming out of this? And I think, as Joe said, the one program we're really proud of is the Wave grant. And that is it's where we put a lot of our energy over this time period. We still found people to give money to. We still, you know, found ways to mentor them, even through, as Joe said, through COVID. So that's been a really exciting thing for us.
Well, let's talk about the Wave grant, because that was the thing that I'd originally saw that I went, oh, I really want to meet this company, because I thought it was so great. I think you should talk more about what it is in terms of how you're nurturing and supporting emerging diverse filmmakers. I think that it's obviously extremely timely and extremely necessary. But you know, you're actually putting your money where your mouth is and creating these opportunities. And I think that's a really fascinating thing. And I can show this video that you sent me. But do you want to talk about the Wave grant first, or?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's Joe's idea, so I'll give him credit.
Was it really? I don't remember that.
You came up with the idea and I went, Wave. Okay, let women at the very edge. All right, this is what we call it. So
right.
it kind of took all of that much mind melt.
But I remember very well where it started, because Jen and I spent a lot of time walking around various film festivals and going to brunches where people would talk about the idea of making opportunities for underrepresented voices. And we finally turned to each other and we said, I can't go to one more brunch. Let's just do something.
Right. Let's stop talking about it. We'll just do it. So we came up with this idea that what would happen if we put it out there that we're looking to give $5,000 to a young woman at the very edge, first-time filmmaker who's looking to get her first film done. And it obviously it's BIPOC, non-binary, you know, all the space where we're really trying to make sure. Sorry, everybody, I have 2 dogs. This could go south anytime. But really, just really, you know, biting into that space. And really, you know, a lot of people have said, but that's a risky place to put money. And I don't see that as a risk at all, because for Wavelength, it's a very important piece for us to get connected with these young filmmakers. They're hungry. They want a chance, right? We've found some brilliant directors, you know, who we've gotten the opportunity to share in their filmmaking. So we find it to be a great pipeline, a great relationship builder, and also a great chance to offer these women seed money to really make their dreams come true. So those are, for me, those have been the most exciting parts.
Now you're expanding it, right? You're expanding it through other strategic partnerships with other similarly situated organizations, right?
Right. Well, that's what we're working on right now, because there's a lot of interest out there right now, and in particular what we're doing. And there's programs at Sundance, there's programs coming out of other large organizations. So we're definitely on that radar for sure.
And what is the collective? Is it too premature for you to talk about that, or?
No, we've done a program this year with the Black TV and Film Collective in New York City. There are a fellowship that's targeting African American producers mostly, and we did a grant with them that offers them an opportunity to build out 6 narrative films to tell the story of education through the Black perspective, and that's gone really well. We're very excited about that.
All specifically focused on education?
Yeah, this particular season is focused on education. Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to show this video
Right.
because I looked at it, I thought it was great. So this is a demo of a sort of compilation of the Wave grant. So let me pull this up. And should be sharing, right?
Rolling.
Hi, my name is
Gina Marie Hernandez.
Phil Ramos.
Chloe Ramos.
It's Eliana Pipes,
And I'm a writer, director, producer, and composer.
A writer and director. A DP. Writer and director.
a performer, playwright, screenwriter, and now director. When I received the Wave grant, I was at sort of a crossroads in my professional career.
We had both just graduated into the pandemic.
I was, creatively in a rut.
Lo and behold, Wave Grant was there.
The Wave grant is dedicated to supporting first-time female and non-binary filmmakers of color with a $5,000 grant to support them in creating their own short film, in addition to mentorship and developmental support from Wavelength Productions.
Our short film is Sticky Fingers. Wavelength really supported us on our journey to shoot on 16mm, which I think a lot of other mentors might have dissuaded us from. I think it means a lot when people that you really trust in their opinion take a chance on your work.
My short is Chicks. It's a short comedy turned horror. I think shorts are an excellent tool, honestly, to just become a better filmmaker. You kind of have to challenge yourself in order to tell the most concise story in the shortest amount of time.
My project is an animated short film called Nails. It's a whimsical, intersectional, uplifting coming-of-age story. The Wave grant is really setting me up to own my voice.
So my film is Blue Hour, and Wavelength was there the entire time holding my hand to make sure that my film came to life, not only in the funding area, but through the steps that you go through in production.
To any filmmakers who are on their journey of making their first film or just starting out,
Find the people who you feel that sense of creative community with so that you can sort of build with them and grow with them.
Genuinely, do not give up. Even when it's really difficult, do not give up.
there's no point in waiting for the perfect time. You should just do it.
I feel like I have become much more confident in myself, in my voice, and it's all thanks to the Wave grant.
If you want to get your movie done, you should apply to this grant. You'll be very happy.
1, 2, 3. Apply to the Wave grant.
You'd be like 10 out of 10 happy if you apply to this grant.
That's fantastic. And so where are these films? Like, you've given them the $5,000. I assume they all look very happy. You've given them their 10 out of 10.
We have gone through too much stuff with the school district for too long.
YouTube goes to the next video.
So today we're talking about education alternatives here in Greater Philadelphia.
The founder of Open Connections, he's opening a location in the
Oh,
city.
you're actually playing now. We're on school.
By the
Now
school
I gotta
district.
find it.
We don't have tests, we don't have grades, we don't have homework. There's this whole way of being that school represents that we just say, no thanks.
You want your kids to learn the best way they can. So I don't understand like how these kids gonna learn anything.
There's no teachers, there's facilitators.
All right. Sorry about that.
No worries. I haven't heard that sizzle in a very long time.
Oh, is that one? That was one of yours also?
That's one of our films called
Let's
Unschooled.
pose
Yeah.
to the next video.
Oh, what is it?
Unschooled it's not out yet. It's been done for a while, but it was supposed to premiere 2 years ago at South by Southwest EDU conference. And then obviously we know what happened in 2020. So it's just been kind of on hold, waiting for its chance to come out. It's actually now really part of a big impact campaign that's run by a whole nother organization. So anyway, but that's the sizzle.
That's great.
But to bring us back to the WAVE grant, one of the things that seeing the video reminds me of is finding these voices at this early stage is something that's really exciting to Jen and I. And when we launched the grant, we really didn't have any expectation. We had no idea if it would land, how it would land. One of the things we did ask the applicants, and we continue to ask the applicants for, is a short video about themselves, why they qualify for the WAVE grant. And I have to say, you know, when Jen and I first went through the videos, we were both so moved by not just the quality of the submissions, but really the creative voice that they brought to the table. And for me, that was one of the most exciting things about the program. And it's one of the reasons why we have continued to expand the program. This past year, we had 3 recipients because there was just absolutely no way we could winnow it down to 1 person. And now next year, we're going to open it up to 5 recipients. And again, for us as a company, Jen and I remember those early days as a filmmaker where you don't know if the film is going to work. You don't know who out there wants to support you. It feels a little bit overwhelming. And to be able to meet these young creative voices at that stage and give them, you know, $5,000 is just a leg up, you know, and it's on purpose. We want them to dig in and to find other resources in addition to our grant to build out their films. But it's enough to say, hey, we're out here, we value your voice, you deserve to be heard, and we're going to be a part of making that happen.
And then you take these $5,000 films that you are nurturing, and the hope is that those will turn into the sizzle reels that you can then sell as a full-length feature.
Well, that's what we're hoping to do is
That's sort of how the process unfolds from
yeah.
from the
We're trying to
demo forward.
Well, you know, and what's the couple things that have really come out of it that's nice, obviously distribution or festival submissions and acceptance would be awesome, right? That I think that would be great. But the couple things that have been really successful and make us very happy is these filmmakers, they took $5,000 plus whatever bits they could raise, right, and they did a film. So they can call themselves filmmakers as far as I'm concerned. You know, there's a lot of crankiness out there in the industry where they say, I just don't get enough money, I can't make my film for that. These girls did in a pandemic, all of them. And the other thing that they really did, and we actually not only took the 4 girls total, because we had Eliana from the first year and then the three new ones, but they all came together. We created a Slack channel for them, and they all came together as filmmakers to support each other's films and trade ideas. But then we also took the additional 15 filmmakers that didn't make the cut, but were really very compelling stories. And we helped introduce them to Seed and Spark. We helped introduce them to other spaces where they could find money. And we also brought them together as a community. And from what we know, they've been very much in touch with each other, helping each other again find, you know, resources and equipment, and, you know, figure out how to get their films made as well. So I think what's been nice is that it's built a community along with, you know, helping these filmmakers feel like they are filmmakers because they got their film done. And yes, the next step would be, and we're, like I said, we're working on that, is to figure out how to, they're all submitting their films to festivals, depending on where they are in the process. And then we kind of want to figure out how do we promote that from there. So.
Yeah. And just to put a finer point on that, we don't have any vested financial interest in these projects. Our interest is in cultivating new voices. And based on their work, perhaps bring them aboard one of our other projects, or
Mhm.
perhaps help them find work in the industry. It's really about catalyzing change. It's really about putting our money where our mouth is. It's really about taking action rather than talking. And in an industry that often has no trouble, giving out awards and spending a lot of time talking about things, Jen and I, are very much invested in action. Let's do something. Let's make something. And long term, we hope to look back in 10 years and have Oscar winners and Emmy winners and successful new voices launching the next Marvel franchise. Maybe they got their start at the Wave Grant. I don't think that's too grand of an idea. In fact, I plan on it. I'll be back in 10 years and we can talk about the classes of Wave Grant recipients and where they are.
I completely agree. I think that, one thing about, and this sort of leads to my next question, is that, where are the indie voices coming from now, right? Because, you've got all this consolidation in the media, where Disney now owns FX. So FX used to be the cutting edge, edgy cable network. Now they're owned by Disney. So, so like, where are these voices going to come from? I really believe indie film, it plays a very, very important role in.
Yeah, 100%. We remain completely bullish on indie, the whole indie spirit, the whole indie space. Does that mean we'd be against selling some of our films to the big streamers? No, we'd sell them in a heartbeat. But the place, again, that people refer to as risk is really for us so much fun, because it's coming in for early money to develop something. It's coming in for giving that $10,000 to that filmmaker to flesh out this idea, proof of concept. That's a space we love to play. Is it the most lucrative space in the business? No, but we feel like that kind of investment is going to pay off, as Joe said, 10 years down the road,
Right.
because we're investing in people and stories and filmmakers that we really believe in. And we believe that, okay, they may not get this film done, but they'll get another one done. And here comes Wavelength to help with that. But the big piece too is this experience has helped us with our own original content, because we do have a lot of our own original pieces. And we actually have a slate that's more full of things we're developing and creating than we have anymore in the investment space. So that sort of unknown, we really kind of thrive in.
So my next question was going to be a little more on the business side. I noticed that in July that on the same day, 2 articles were written. One that said independent producers are struggling even as the pandemic recedes, and the other article being how streaming is helping and not killing the indie film business. So you're getting the messaging on both sides, literally on the same day. And I really wanted to hear what you thought about this from a business perspective. Because there's been so much written about, indie filmmakers can't make money, and the Producers Guild is now trying to come up with a collective bargaining union. There's been so much of this written, but then at the same time, you see articles about how streaming is actually helping the indie film business. So I'm just curious on the business side, how you see this.
All right, you can start, Joe.
Well, Jen and I have a saying that we like, where we say both things can be true.
Right.
The business can be receding and it can be expanding at the same time. The question is, where is it receding and where is it expanding? We see the expanding happening in marginalized voices, in new voices. We see it expanding in terms of creativity. Creativity will always win the day, no matter what. And we want to be at the vanguard of that movement. Who are the new voices? Who are the ones who are going to be putting their films up at Sundance? Wavelength has had films that have won the Emerging Filmmaker Award 2 years in a row at Sundance. And we're very, very proud of that. A film called Cusp, which is a documentary about young women coming of age in a small Texas town, and Feels Good Man, the definitive documentary on the Pepe the Frog meme, and memes everywhere. And both of those films are by emerging first-time filmmakers. And that's where we want to focus, and it's where we see the indie landscape expanding. And so when filmmakers talk about, it's harder out there than ever, we lean on what is the creative vision. Let's figure out how not to do what's always been done, and lean into what is the next iteration of indie cinema look like. We stay very much, and we're very bullish on that part of the business.
Yeah, and I think back to the producer piece, we produce a lot. We have in our library or arsenal or whatever you want to call it, we have 60 plus films we've been involved with in the last 5 years in some fashion, either just pure investment to actually creating the content. I have a director's credit. Joe has many producers credits. I have another producer credit coming, So in that world of credits and space where people work, obviously a producer wears many different hats. There's many different types of producers. I think that the space that, and I'll just be honest, I think sometimes it's hard when you're faced with something like a pandemic where, it's kind of like not everybody's a producer. If you can't get your film made, maybe it's not that good. Maybe it's not the streamer's fault. Maybe it's just not a good film. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all make something that just nobody likes. It's what Cynthia said yesterday, rejection is not failure. It's just somebody said no. So go find where somebody will say yes. If you can't find that space, then maybe you need to let it go. Maybe you need to find a different project. But producing for me it's hard work, but it's what you choose to sign up for. So it's not, it's not a government handout. You need to understand that you have to work to get your producer credit. It's hard work. You got to raise money. You got to get everything organized and set. You got to get permits done. There's all kinds of ways to produce. But I'm having a hard time, especially as hard as we've all worked in our lives. I'm having a hard time believing that there's the industry is against producers. And I know deferments, and we've talked a lot through this with other people, but it's hard. It's a hard business. It's a really hard business, and that's okay. That it's what we signed up for, so we know that. And so we definitely have sort of like both can be true about the industry. It's hard, and yes, it's a choice. So anyway,
you just have to come up every day, think of another way to get yes.
Well, exactly. You just got to figure it out. If you can't, then there's other things to do. I had a friend in theater school. She taught theater, and she'd start her graduate classes with, if you can think of anything else to do besides being in theater, go do that. Because on any given day, 99% of all people that work in theater are unemployed. So today it's about 100%, right? So it's an industry by choice. And that's what I say to a lot of our young filmmaker friends.
So one last question before we get to the Q&A I wanted to ask you. So yesterday, one of the financiers, one of the women who gives out these grants and gives out these financing opportunities said that there's no middle road for them. They feel like for them, either they hit the jackpot or it becomes a very small opportunity, that there was no middle road. And I want to ask you that question in the context of, is self-distribution an option for an indie filmmaker? Can you by virtue of creating and targeting community and catering to a niche audience, can a filmmaker self-distribute their film?
Yes, absolutely.
Full stop.
Full stop. We did 3 during the pandemic. We distributed 3 films ourselves. It depends on, it's hard work. It's very hard work. And you do have to find a little money for marketing and things like that. But it's really a wonderful opportunity to keep control of your film. So you can control the audience, right? If you're doing a film and you need it to be seen in 190 countries like Netflix, then you're not going to self-distribute very easily. But if you have a film that you have a targeted audience, we had great success with our films, and we've heard success with other films where they're very excited because this entire audience made up of 500,000 people got to see their film. That's a lot of eyes on a film. You think about the number of films distributed by various streamers, they don't have that many eyeballs on a film. So it really depends on how you're going to define success for the film. If it's going to be the money you make, then that's one thing. If it's going to be the awards you win, that's another thing. Is it going to be the number of people see it? That's another. You rarely get all three. You usually get one. So you kind of have to pick what space. And we love the fact that we have these 3 films. We still own them. And so they're still our property, and we control it. And we're very happy about that. We're also happy to sell if it works out to sell. But yes, self-distribution today it's a lot of work, but it's actually very rewarding if you do it right.
Can you give some specifics about one of the projects that you self-distributed, just in terms of what it took and how it unfolded and where you started? Like, where did you start?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the most well-known project that we self-distributed was Feels Good Man. This is a film we took to Sundance. We premiered at Sundance. We won an award for it at Sundance for emerging filmmaker. The press was absolutely off the charts around the film. We decided not to go the traditional way. We decided to go this sort of hybrid distribution model. We did have a small deal with PBS. We wanted to make sure that they were able to show it, and they actually broke all their records for the number of views and eyeballs on the project. And then we took it out ourselves. We managed the cutting of the trailer, the creation of the poster, finding our audience online. We knew that the film, because of its topicality, would resonate well with the online audience. We used digital marketing, which was a much more cost-effective way of going than traditional marketing. Allows us to pinpoint exactly who our audience is, who we think our audience is, and who our audience turned out to be. And we were able to pivot and work responsively in real time with these ads are working, these ads aren't. This group is responding to the film, this group isn't. It was, as Jen said, a heavy lift. This is not something, and the reason most people want to sell their film is they don't want to do this work, and I don't blame them. It's a tremendous amount of work. That said, the experience as a filmmaker is indispensable. The tools at your disposal have never been better. The
data targeting opportunities are so rich.
Yeah. The insight that Facebook provided was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. We were able to see exactly who was responding to the film, what demographics, what age groups, what gender, what profile. So my point is, it's a brave new world on the distribution front. Filmmakers should not be afraid of it. And absolutely, you can find success going that route. You just should not underestimate the amount of work you're going to have to put in to make it happen.
Just to sort of drill down just a little deeper on this, you went straight from, yes, we did this, and then we took it to Sundance. And we all know that not everybody can just take their film to Sundance. So,
Sure. No, we had to get into Sundance, and
right. So
no, it didn't sell. It didn't sell. So we pivoted and we figured, and there was no theatrical, because then shortly after Sundance there was COVID. So we had to pivot again. The ITVS deal on PBS was awesome. They are awesome people to work with. And we ended up on October 19th, 2020 with 1.9 million people across the country watching this film.
Right.
We had it up on
social media marketing, mostly.
We did a ton of social media marketing. We had Joe said we had great PR. We had a great team helping us with that. And then we just kept finding places for it to be. Went up on platforms. We did the marketing around the platforms. We worked with a company called First, I think, is that what they are called, Joe? The international route. So Visit. We sold it in a lot of territories around the world. And you know, honestly, that's one of the things I've said to filmmakers is, you know, if you can't get a streamer in the US to buy your film, think about overseas. Those, you know, those little deals add up.
Oh, yeah. Territories.
Yeah, and they're paying a little more than they used to. So so you know, you get 40 or 50, you know, territories around the world to buy your film, you can recoup.
Yeah.
And that's without the US market. So you know, it also Feels Good Man is best known for being the most pirated film on the internet. So
now, why did it become the most pirated film on the internet?
What's that?
Why did it become the most pirated?
Because it's about the internet, and it's about the dark web of the internet. And so these guys know how to pirate a film. They don't mess around. So to the point where the filmmakers figured out how to put a tip jar on the platforms where they're pirating from, right? So so we just, you know, we had fun with it. But it was a lot of work, but it was, and we're still working on it. We still actually are probably getting it shown in some theaters this fall, because some of the theaters are coming back. So, you know, it's just you got to get into it. If you're going to self-distribute, it's got to be a marathon, not a sprint. You got to think the long term on your film. And we could end up selling it in a couple of years. We don't know. So, but that's the fun of it, right?
No, the international, there are so many territories and they're all starving for content.
Yep.
It's a seller's market. If you, as you say, have the stamina and the time to go market by market across Europe,
yeah,
we'll find buyers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're down to 10 minutes. There is an opportunity here if anybody would like to ask Jen or Joe any questions. We can make that happen. We have the technology for that. And if not, this will go into our archive and be shown. You know, the people who have bought tickets for the festival can watch this at any time during the festival.
Oh,
and
great.
We may make it available post festival as well. And you know, we'll but so it isn't just day and date, right? This either. So. But if there are no questions, I just want to say thank you for giving us such a detailed, personal look at this. From, you know, I think what you guys are doing is amazing, especially this WAVE grant. And is there anything else that you want to say to our audience or anybody else? Words of wisdom to part by?
Well, thank you, David, for having both of us. It's always wonderful to be able to talk about the work that we're doing, the work that we're very, very passionate and committed to doing. And thank you to anyone and everyone who is here in attendance. I hope that what we shared is helpful. And I hope that you continue working on whatever it is that moves you and inspires you the same as we do.
Great.
Well, and as I said yesterday, David, anyone who wants very direct feedback, please come talk to Wavelength. That's the only kind of feedback we know how to give.
And the only feedback that has any value, really.
But we mean it in the sincerest way, because we love our filmmakers and we love our films, and we do have a lot of fun working in this industry. So thank you very much for allowing us to have this time.
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye, everyone.
You too.